Hello, Eric Sheptuck, the homeless advocate coming at you again. So I'm going to ask DHS for an update on certain things that they got the ball rolling on a while back, and I'm going to ask you about your plans going forward concerning various shelters. Now, myself and other homeless advocates have talked in the past about shelters that are threatened by development, and very recently, on August 17th, 2016, folk from DHS and DOES and other parts of DC government and the nonprofit community went out to the New York Avenue shelter, and they did a service bazaar where they presented various services that they offer, and then they had a discussion with the guys about what more they need and so forth and so on. Now, first of all, I should say that myself and other advocates have told you time and time again that you already have a lot of information from what the homeless people have said they needed over the years. I from time to time pass around a 10-year-old document. When the ICH was first had its inception in 2006, you had 4 big meetings in different locations. 300 homeless people came out and talked about what they needed, and we have it on paper, we have it on PDF. All you have to do is go back and scroll through that and see what's been fixed and what hasn't been fixed. One of the things that was said at New York Avenue Shelter a few days ago was that guys are tired of saying the same things over and over again. So the nonprofits and the government need to first just look at what's already been said over the years and figure out what they can already act upon without making the rounds again. But now that you are making the rounds, that raises a lot of questions. So we know that New York Avenue Shelter is right across the road from the Hex warehouse, which has recently been developed into condominiums. And we know that the shelter and the Hex warehouse / condominiums have opposing dynamics to them, and that the developer does not really want all those 360 guys there. He's tried to be polite about it and talk to the city about this issue for a number of years, but at the meeting a few days ago, that matter was not discussed in depth. I brought it up in side conversations, but it wasn't talked about in the large group, and the media and the government tend to kind of dance around the issue. We also know that the 801 East shelter is on the grounds of St. Elizabeth Hospital, where the Wizards are going to have a practice facility very soon, and it's also right across the road from where the Coast Guard moved in, and where Homeland Security might soon move in. And so let's have a robust conversation about how development interacts with the homeless shelters that are in these various locations. And let's also be straightforward and honest as to whether or not these meetings that you're holding are for the purpose of shutting down shelters. Now, we know that in the 5-year plan, it mentions renovating New York Avenue Shelter. That renovation is supposed to take place in 2018. The government has had trouble finding a place to relocate 360 men while the renovation takes place. New York are the John Young and Open Door Women's Shelters, which held a total of 200 women, moved to Chinatown recently, so we have some vacant space. But that still leaves 160 guys that have nowhere to go. DC government has been grappling with the issue for a while, so what I want is an update on where your thinking is, where your plans are concerning that issue, and how it ties in with the meeting that took place on August 17th. It was said at that meeting that you were going to make the rounds every couple of months and come back and talk to the guys again. And so I would say, on the one hand, it's kind of unfair to have this conversation with the guys because of the fact that you're asking them to think about something that they haven't already thought about in depth. But the second round might go better, so I don't want to discourage you from continuing to do it, but I do want to make sure that you follow through this time, because on April 27th of 2016, DC government, DHS, came out to CCNV shelter to talk about the future of CCNV. You basically said that you had no plans for the future of CCNV. In spite of there having been a 9-month task force, in spite of the fact that there's now legislation as a result of the task force, and that legislation gives the mayor the go-ahead to close the shelter if she wants to. In spite of the fact that across the road from the shelter, we have a big development called Capitol Crossing, which costs $1.3 billion. When it's done in 2023, it's going to be 2.2 million square feet. And so the homeless are not naive. When we see development next door or across the street, we wonder to ourselves, how is that going to affect the future of the shelter? People ask me that on pretty much a daily basis. And so please do let us know if this round of meetings has to do with the adjacent development, if it has to do with the shelter closure, if it's part of a bigger plan. Don't try to mum's the word until we have 6 months or less before the shelter closure. That's what happened with Franklin School Shelter. The announcement about permanent supportive housing and the closing of Franklin School Shelter came out on April 1st of 2008. The shelter was closed on September 26, 2008, just shy of 6 months after the announcement came out. 6 months or less is not enough time to address the issues that many of these people have. Job training programs often run longer than 6 months, and so let's have this robust conversation in a more intentional way. Let's talk about what the overarching plan is. Let's talk about how it ties in with this series of meetings. Let's make sure these meetings do occur, and let's bring the services to people, and let's look back at the information that we already have from what people have already said in the past. I mean, homeless people have said for the past 10 years, because they're getting tired of saying the same thing. Okay, and so let's pull together all of the information that we already have, and let's make a comprehensive plan going forward, and let's bring better services that aren't just geared toward the disabled, but that are also geared toward the able-bodied. And as I love to say, WIOA makes you do it. Thank you.